Yes.
I'm trying to throw the agenda up there, but I'm having a bandwidth problem too. So I can just.
That's okay.
Okay.
I can read it through at the beginning. Or could you cut and paste it into the chat, or is that too many?
I can do that, I think.
Depending
Might be
on
long,
what
but that's
devices
totally
are
fine.
working. Okay. I think that's fine. And we can see each other. Do we have anybody new tonight? I don't think so.
If I just pasted in chat, the formatting is a little off, but we get the content in there.
Thank you. All right, why don't I go ahead and read that through? I don't think we need any intros before we jump into updates. So let me read through the agenda. Welcome everybody. Happy December. Thanks for joining for this optional meeting. And we did, Sally and I saw each other at the TNB party last night, which was a lot of fun. And it felt like a real human being event in a really lovely setting. If you haven't been yet to the Lubber Run Community Center, if that's the right name. It's lovely and it's so airy and big. It's sort of a good, we're still in an endemic or a pandemic, but we get together. So it was a really nice space. So it's a simple agenda tonight. Let's see. Welcome and intros. So I don't think we have any introductions of new people or guests. An update section and discussion of an idea that the Planning and Development Group and folks who can join that meeting would like to talk through with this bigger group and see if we can come up with a proposal for some action steps. And then at the end, some announcements.
Hey, Megan, maybe
yeah.
we could let Kathleen Donovan introduce herself.
All right, sounds wonderful.
Is that okay?
So let's do that. And then the agenda's in the chat. And if folks join late, maybe we can repaste, or else I'll just announce as I get to this and that. So Kathleen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the kind invitation. I think Lynn had arranged for me to join you earlier in the fall, and I was happy to receive this invitation. I do have a monthly SEPTA meeting, our special ed PTA, which starts tonight at 6:30, but I thought I would come and at least say a quick hello and join you. I work for Arlington Public Schools. I'm a special ed coordinator at the Parent Resource Center, so I am familiar with the partnership and have for many years admired the great work you all do, and I'm happy to join you tonight.
Thanks so much. And Kathleen, I just figured you were one of us. After a lot of corresponding.
Feels like
you
it
fit right in on my screen too. So we have an even 12.
She's everywhere.
So you can't leave. Yeah. Welcome. Good to see you. And then let's go around real quick and introduce ourselves. And maybe I'll call on people just around or I'll ping pong it to the next person. How about that? Megan Mack, and I'm a community member. I have a daughter who's in 8th grade at HB, and I will pass it to, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'll pass it to Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Ye with the HS Behavior Health Bureau. I'm Prevention Director, he, him, his. I am the interim coordinator for the partnership. And I will go to John.
John Andelin, was on the partnership for a long time. I'm now on a couple of the subcommittees, and I'm also with the Arlington Community Foundation. Judy?
Thanks, John. I'm Judy Haddon, also been on the partnership for a long time, since the beginning, I guess. I have two, they aren't kids anymore, but two young adults who went through Arlington schools, and I now have 3 grandchildren in Arlington schools. And most recently, I've kind of worked on lots of different things, but most recently, and now working on mostly on youth mental health and wellness. So I'll go to Grace.
I'm Grace Wagner, data specialist with Partnership and Arlington Public Schools. And I will go to Laura Newton.
Hello, everyone. Laura Newton from APS, Director of Student Services. And we can go to Jamie.
Good evening, everyone. Jamie Premdas. My pronouns are she and her. I am the Children's Behavioral Health Bureau Director in the Child and Family Services Division at DHS. And I will pass to Kim. Did you go?
No, sorry, it's my son in the other room. Kimberly Baldini, Parks and Recreation Youth Services Section Leader. Let's see, Rick.
Hello, Rick Strock. I'm the Deputy Director of Port Services. I'm an Arlington resident, live in South Arlington. All my kids went to Arlington Public Schools, Key, Gunston, and Wakefield. And I think I already said it. I'm the Director of Court Services, which is a branch. It's connected to the juvenile court. And I will choose the TNB, which I think is Siobhan, but I'm not sure.
It's Sally and incognito.
Oh, Sally Incognito.
I'm getting ready for another meeting as well with Friends of Urban Agriculture, but just wanted to say, hey, I am your recorder this evening, and I'm the web coordinator for the partnership and Arlington Teens. Thank you. And I'm passing it to who hasn't gone? Sorry, everyone. Anne O'Brien.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann O'Brien. I'm a community member of the partnership. I have a first grader and a third grader at APS, and I'm happy to see you all.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to kick off the updates. My first update is I joined the meeting with the county manager a week or 2 weeks ago, where they invite chairs of the different commissions and committees to come say a few words, 1 minute or less, to the county manager as they kick off the budgeting process for the next year. And so I'd say the level of detail that people offered at that meeting went from general to very, very specific. Some groups that have had the same ask for years had sort of put together a talking points on some of those asks, and some of those are very powerful. And then also some commissions and committees kind of backed each other up a little bit, like we and this other commission are supporting this change to the budget or this budget priority. And just to say that, folks in this, usually I'm the newest person in the room, but in case other folks haven't joined in that process, those are different ways that people really raise the level of their ask. What I said was on the more of the general level, which was looking for ways, I brought a question: how are you going to improve equity for our kids and families in this time following COVID and during COVID, when equity challenges have been exacerbated. But I think we'll sort of return to that budget theme as the evening goes on, because one of the things that I would like to think about is how we can use our advocacy, which will, sort of look at a potential topic to go forward to the budgeting process in, I think it's February or March, when we go before the county and school board, and whether we have particular asks that we want to make either for the budget or to start building momentum for the future. Any questions on that before the next item? All right, so the next update is from Grace.
Sorry, I hit the chat button instead of the unmute button. So I was asked for an update about the surveys. So for the Virginia Youth Survey, that was administered at the beginning of November, the week before Thanksgiving, and then the Monday before Thanksgiving. So we got it done. We're in. We oversampled as best we could. I actually heard very little from any of the schools, which means it went off without a hitch, which is great news. So data was collected, data was sent over to the state. Schools had a little bit more leeway this year. They got to choose how they wanted to do it, whether it was paper or a link. And so they had whatever worked best for them in these days, like whatever we can give them to let them do their own way and still get the data, that's great. But that is done. I don't have a timeline for when the data gets back. I've heard a couple different things. Some I hear beginning of the new year, and then others I've heard it won't be ready until the summer. I'm still kind of looking into that. As for Your Voice Matters, our current timeline is that we will be administering it in March. And that means when we get back from break, our team's going to be hitting the ground running. And we'll start reaching out to different owners of questions to start getting feedback and what we want to change and keep and whatever moving forward. So I'm really shocked we got both done, or we still expect to get both done this year with everything that's going on, but we got one done, and I'm super, super, super excited about the data because we actually collected the Virginia Youth Survey right before the pandemic. And now we're collecting it kind of at the tail end of this. And so, while there's no pandemic specific questions, it's just, I'm really, really interested to see not only like like the things that we know are going to go down, mental health and stress and all that, but the things maybe we never thought about that we might be able to attribute to the pandemic. So I'm super excited about it. Not that I'm excited to see numbers go anywhere but up, but I'm excited to see what it's going to tell us. We got a really cool timeline data set there for us data nerds. So yeah, that's what I have.
A good point, Grace. I'm also looking forward to looking at some of the protective factors, if it kind of shows through as adding to the resiliency of the youth and the community, in terms of like social connectedness or connectedness with family members, to see if we have any actual increases in those numbers.
Yeah. Yep, that too. I'm just nerding out over here.
Looking forward to it.
Grace, can you keep us updated? Oh, this is Judy. Can you keep us updated on when you think the data will be in?
Always.
As you hear things?
Yeah, okay. Always. I mean, from what I understand, you guys probably know more than I do. They're just going to be sending us it in a huge chunk zip file. So whenever that happens, I'll be reaching out to Sally, getting it up on the websites, and obviously letting you guys know. So
thank you.
In the past, we've always put out the raw data, so I expect that to continue to be the same. I don't think there's any reason to keep any data. I mean, it's public access data anyway. Virginia Department of Health is the purpose of collecting it is because it's public information. So we'll need to put it out in its raw form. But then we can start working on how to also present it yay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Grace, remind me, some of those surveys, do we have comparison with other counties, nearby counties or neighbors? Because it's good to have local information, but I think it's good to see how we are doing in comparison to our surrounding neighbors or in the state, because I'm hearing that everybody is, facing challenges. And I'd be interested to find out, if there are areas where different counties, seem to peak or valley when it comes to social emotional skills and mental health issues.
Yeah. So for Your Voice Matters, we do not. With Virginia Youth Survey, they present data back to us at our local level, not all data points. I don't know how they decide which ones to give us, but they provide all raw data by question, by race, ethnicity, all of the big groups in Arlington. But then they also present it to us compared to the state of Virginia, the entirety of the state of Virginia, but also by our region. And so in our region, it's the Northern Virginia region. So we're also going to be in with Falls Church, with Fairfax, with Prince William, I believe.
Yeah.
And so we can look at our number compared to the rest of the Northern Virginia region. I don't know that in any of the data sets I've seen, we've gotten the other regions, but it is public data. So if we want it, we can get it. If we wanted to look at Richmond, we would have to, from what I understand, because this is a Virginia specific survey and it's very difficult, you almost never want to look at data unless it's the exact same question, word for word, period for period, apostrophe for apostrophe, unless if it's asked in another place. So we wouldn't want to necessarily pull out Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is a comparative district to Arlington, unless they were asked specifically the same questions. But for the Northern region, we do get that data. So we can compare to our surrounding districts, and if we wanted to look at Fairfax specifically or Falls Church specifically, we'd have to go find their data, but it is also public. So,
I mean, I would be interested. I think it would be very similar to Alexandria or Fairfax.
Yeah, I forget about Alexandria.
Near, yeah. Just to know how we're doing, because I think it has hit kids, the same in this area. And that's what I would like to know. What does the pandemic, has done for our kids in this area?
Yeah, so it's definitely something, I mean, it's not something that's going to be given to me in any of our raw data, but it's something that when we start kind of figuring out what we want to do with this data, how we want to present it, where it's going to be most useful to the community, those are definitely things we can look into.
The reason we started Second Chance was that the early data on assets and risky behaviors showed that Arlington kids were drinking more and binging more than our surrounding neighborhoods. So we were above the national average and above the regional average. Now, again, Grace is right. I'm not sure the questions were identical from one to the other, but they ask, have you had some within the last, how many, and whatever.
Right.
It's not only the periods and apostrophe, the order of the questions has to be carefully looked at, because that can change answers.
Yeah, I know they spent I don't know that they spent a long time, but the more I look at that survey, the more I see they're asking the heavy questions in the middle, because those upfront questions, they're kind of like, and then they kind of get into it. And then at the end, they're kind of like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'll just say whatever I want to say, or I won't say anything at all. So yeah, exactly. Absolutely. The order of the questions is just as important. Yep.
Thank you. Super exciting. You can tell everybody sits up in their chair, like with the data. It's not just you. Okay, so the next update is Jamie. Can I turn it to you?
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So Sally sent out an email to the partnership a little bit before our meeting started, and then Tabitha and I have sent emails yesterday and today, and it's on our website, sharing that due to low staffing in children's behavioral health, that we are instituting a priority population, and that is in accordance with the Community Services Board's prioritization policy. This way we can really balance services to clients while maximizing our resources. This was not an easy decision, but a necessary decision to ensure that we're still able to offer quality services to Arlington's children and families. So we have a prioritization. We are continuing to do intakes on a limited basis and scheduled basis. And there's a letter, it's on our website. It was sent out to this group as well. And if you have questions, I can take a couple. And we're encouraging anyone who is interested in services or referring for services to contact our information and referral hotline at 228-1560 for the most current information about our scheduling and all of that. We also have a pretty robust list that we use to refer out to community partners, and we are calling each week and checking in to see exactly what the landscape looks like. And we will help folks as much as we can to link to other places. But right now we are prioritizing the population that will be able to receive services.
Jamie, does this include CR2 services?
It does not. And CR2 services are for now for any youth or adult, their lifespan services now that experiences a behavioral health crisis where they are at risk for hospitalization. CR2 is open and working and accessible. This is just for services from my Bureau, Children's Behavioral Health.
And do you think this is going to be temporary, or is this going to, as far as you know, or do you think it's going to go on maybe the rest of, the school year?
Honestly, I can't predict. I can tell you that there is a statewide and national shortage of licensed behavioral health therapists. As you can imagine, therapists are in high demand right now. And there are a lot of teleworking positions and a lot of other things. So we are aggressively recruiting and, working through our list that we get from HR as quickly as we can. So, but we have gotten a significant increase in the number of kids that are coming to our front door. Mm-hmm. Their needs are way more complex and higher than pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so in order to provide quality services to the kids that we have now, we really felt that it was important to initiate this prioritization. So I can't say. I can hope, and I'm putting out into the universe that it is short, but I can tell you that other jurisdictions experience this localities. I have meetings once a month with other people in my similar positions in our region. I can tell you that they experienced this, the influx of kids with the higher needs back in August and September. We didn't get ours until October, November, and they've been experiencing staff shortages throughout the pandemic, like really significant ones. We just started experiencing a staffing shortage in children's behavioral health. So we knew it was coming, we just didn't know when and how.
No, and I have to say, I was listening to a presentation from BDOE, and they do say that statewide, the cases, mental health issues, behavioral issues have gone up. And obviously that will affect the schools because, we had a limited amount of staff. And if the cases are increasing for all of us, that means that we're going to reach capacity real quick. And I tried to say that the other day that, we're trying to do the best we can, but I do think that it's going to create an issue for the county if we don't have enough services to go around.
Of course. And I don't live in Arlington, but it's the same in my county. And it's a same across the nation, really.
Yeah.
So Jamie, this is Judy. So it's not, I understand there are more clients that need the help, but it's not an attrition situation in the department. It's just that you have more youth that you need to serve than you have capacity for serving. Is that right?
We have an increased number of vacancies.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
And subsequently, our capacity for accepting new youth has decreased significantly
Okay, because of the lack of capacity, yeah, okay,
because of the lack of people filling the positions.
right,
Yes. Mhm.
right.
Well, you know, just to back you up, we also had this year, we have not been able to fulfill all our school psychologist positions. So, you know, we have been short, you know, staff as well. And it becomes very concerning because, you know, you post the positions and we're not getting, you know, the staff that we need.
Yeah, and I'm in another leadership group with other local government leaders, and it's not only in schools and behavioral health, but it's in a lot of other government positions. They're calling it like the Great Resignation or something like that, but people are leaving local governments for a variety of reasons. And so I'm hearing it in other, you know, businesses, transportation, housing, you know, other local government departments, in addition to behavioral health.
Yeah, people are retiring. If they can, they're choosing to retire rather than stay in. And then, you know, trying to replace those positions are becoming very challenging, as you're saying.
Jamie, one more question, it's Judy.
Sure.
So when you have young people that need help and you don't have the capacity, where do you refer them? Where do they go?
Sure. So it depends on their situation, but I can walk through an example. So we would ask what other resources do they have? So do you have any, are you involved with any other providers? We get a fair number of kids that come to us that have a psychiatrist in the community, that have a therapist somewhere else for something else, and they want to come to us and see which one they want to have, or they're looking for a different time or something like that. So what type of family supports are available? What are the school resources? Is this a child that is receiving services already in school? Are they connected to a mentor? Do they have, you know, are they in one of the Young Achievers program? You know, like what other things do they have to support them? What type of insurance do they have? So if they have private insurance or Medicaid, then we can coach them to contact their insurance providers, and they have lists of people, you know, of providers that accept that insurance. We have lists of providers that we refer to, that we are sending to them, that we walk them through that. So, and if they don't have insurance, then they are higher on our prioritization, on our priority. And we can look for, are there alternative resources? So that's what we're doing. We have a list and we're literally walking them through all the options depending on the clinical need, depending on the availability of resources, language, those types of things.
And if they go back and they're not successful, can they come back to you and say, I need more help? Or is this a one-time thing? They come to you, you give them ideas, and they go off and they and their families try to handle it?
So, I mean, we do have limited resources, right? So we're using our resources for the kids that are enrolled and currently receiving services from us. We will try to the best of our ability to help them warmly connect. We won't be able to make warm connections with everyone, but we know that there's people who are going to call us who don't meet our prioritization, but do have extenuating circumstances that we will try as hard as possible. And we are also asking for help from our referral sources during this time to be helping as well, and not the county not being the only referral that's given, but letting them know ahead of time. The county is, we're the safety net provider for behavioral health services. We are the place for those who don't have other places. That's who should be accessing our services. And so that's a huge responsibility that we don't take lightly. So we are really hoping to partner with our community referral sources to help on the front end, knowing that we are at capacity, also helping, in addition to giving our information, helping to refer to other places as well.
Jamie, do you think that it's a matter of compensation? Is it that, maybe, not to say that we have all the money in the world, but do you think that if, salaries were a little bit higher, we would have a better pool of applicants, or that people will come to us? Is compensation an issue?
I think there's a variety of issues, and the people that have left children's behavioral health have not cited compensation as one of those, but compensation is always an issue. It's always an issue for behavioral health folks. We always say we didn't get into it for the money.
But people know where they're paying, where they're paying them more.
Yeah.
And also, I might say a lot of people now want to work from home because of family, because of children. And so perhaps, offering that opportunity, for people from work from home or virtually. I don't know. I'm just trying to think, what other things can we look at that would help us, recruit the people that we need, because the mental health crisis that we are facing, it's not going to go away. And so not for a while anyway.
Yeah, we are recruiting, we are paying for ads in diverse places to get a diverse pool of applicants and to reach out further than just our county website. Usually we advertise on the county website, and so you have to come there to see the ads. So we are putting ads out in other places so that, if you don't happen upon us, you might happen upon Indeed or LinkedIn or National Association of Social Workers, or, a variety of other places as well. So we are trying to think as creatively as possible. Money is the money. But, we are trying hard. And if you know anybody, send them our way.
Believe me, Jamie, if I knew of anybody, I would hire them myself. I was on that.
Shameless plug, I had to say it. But I don't want to take up too much time. I know you all have, we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but thank you, Megan, for allowing a few minutes to share this. And if you have other thoughts or ideas or questions,
Of course, I was going to say, I hope you ask us if this is something that we can put on our list of things to send a note to the county manager about. But I know for the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan funds, a couple of things that they did were for law enforcement, they did bonuses, I believe. And partly that was to match what Richmond had already offered, because they were also having a problem with being competitive with hiring. So, so I think the partnership would be happy to put a plug for schools and the county, if that's something that you think would be helpful, or if we can support other efforts.
Right, Jamie? Every little thing would help, because I'm very concerned, Jamie. I know that you're doing the best you can, I'm just concerned what are going to be our options, if people need services and they don't have private providers, where will they go?
There are other options other than the county.
No, I understand, but
so we've never had anyone wait. We're very responsive. It might not be, they might not do the same thing as the county, but there are other options. There are wait lists and other things like that at other providers, but there are providers that do have openings. So we're trying to really capitalize on that. other providers are also looking for, therapists. So, we're all in a hiring mode right now. So
Well, I hope after the holidays, people are up on the job. Thank you. It's concerning.
Say something to Jamie. I just want to share that I have a ton of empathy for you guys. I can see how hard this is in the prioritization of services, and I feel for you. A mom who's chasing down appointments everywhere I can get them. I wake up at 6 a.m. to try to get like cancellation appointments. I get it. It's super hard. And so, to all of you guys in behavioral health, like we need you. We need you to stay. So whatever we can do to help you. And just so everyone knows, the Fun Factory is suffering too. Like we are short. Like we have a ton of vacancies, positions where we would put out and get like 40 to 100 applications. We're getting 8.
Wow.
So this is not like, you guys do tough work. I mean, it really takes a special person to do the amazing work that you do. And like ours, we like to have fun, and it's still people aren't looking for like government type jobs. So I guess to everyone here, just hang in there.
I'm not ready to retire. I don't know if Jamie is.
I'm not letting you.
I was going to ask, is any way in a sense to increase capacity without having more of you? I mean, Kim is right. This is a terrible situation, and we wish we could help, but shorten sessions by 10 minutes or create a couple of double ups, or there's no way to.
there isn't. We've literally tried everything. I don't want to say unfortunately, but with kids, it's not like a 1-for-1. Like one adult comes in, you see that adult, they leave out. With children, we are seeing the child, the family, the teacher, or the school, the probation officer, the aftercare counselor. So like one child could be 5 hours, even if you only meet with that child for 30 minutes. So and then there's only but so many hours. So initially our first thing was, we don't have any more evening appointments. They will have to miss school. But even with that, there's not but so many hours. I mean, to see a 6-year-old at 8 o'clock, you're not really, everyone's cranky at 8 o'clock. So,
John, Jamie's my boss. I respect her, especially seeing all the things that she's doing behind the scene, and then she bring it to the supervisors and we discuss it. But the conscientiousness that is given and to the process, looking at our process changing where we can, so we have a more centralized process, and it's intentional to really eke out every piece of resource that we have in our clinicians to maximize the caseloads, for example, right? Yes, your point is well taken, that it is in the process, is integrated into the thinking process and how we're, proposing the changes. That's very well informed with, working smarter, a more efficient system to meet the standard of care for our children.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as we think about like a pipeline here, so we see this as an immediate need, which it clearly is an immediate need, but if there's not really a sense of how we're going to get out of this, if there's ways to I don't know, if invest in or explore other grow your own type programs. Like, I don't know if there is any kind of credential that the Career Center could offer that would help support I think not just Arlington, because I think this is a regional, a national problem. But is there a way that, not seeing an obvious out within the next few years, that the schools could work to grow some of these positions, offer some credential that could help develop a workforce that could, or partner with Nova? I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but just really, really kind of dig into that as a partnership.
Usually behavioral specialists have graduate degrees. So it takes a while to get the credentials to become a mental health professional. So yeah, you could, talk kids into going into the field, but it would be a long time after they graduate from high school where they would get the credentials that at least they could work for the school system and maybe for the county as well. But the good thing is, and I don't know if it's good, we have a lot of colleges and universities around us. So I think that what we need to do is really keep in touch with those graduate degrees and really look at maybe what we can do is just offer internships so that we can start with those, students that are about to graduate. And maybe that, following your idea, getting some interns to help us out. And then they become employees if, they do really well. For example, today we were interviewing school psychologist interns, right? Because we really, it's becoming very difficult to find them once they graduate. So if we can get them while they're students, and then they get to know our system, then hopefully by the time they graduate, we can hire them because we know them and they know the system. But with school psychologists, we have to pay them stipends because they are so, everybody wants them. So that's the way to get them. And so we're limited in the number of interns that we can get. So maybe that's a thought, can we expand that so that we can get more interns? It's just a thought.
I don't want to head off a good discussion. Jamie, I hope you know you can ask us for whatever you want, and we can post more things on the list to get help. All right. I hope you have a really restorative holiday. Sounds like a really tough decision, and and thanks for explaining, how each kiddo kind of has to work through and get the services and support that they need. So switching gears to the discussion part of our agenda, and I want to spend, it's 6:46. We're going to be done by 7:30. We have a couple of announcements at the end, maybe, and nothing big. And so really to dig in for a little while, there's a few of us who've been meeting at the P&D schedule to talk through things that, continue the conversation that we've had in our bigger group meetings and really think about what the partnership might be able to do to put some of our energy and experts and, county resources, from the staff who join us and bring their ideas, and what we might be able to focus on. And so continuing that conversation, we had a P&D meeting last week. The time kind of smushes all together, and thought about a potential area that we might want to think about, which is a community navigator role. And so I want to turn it to, and that's a term that has come up in my workplace recently. So that's one that I just kind of attached to some ideas that we were bringing together. So with that, Rick did some research and digging around, has floated some ideas to the P&D folks who have been having this conversation since last week and before. And so I wanted to turn it to him to start our discussion and really think through, how the partnership might be able to focus on something. And I think with the goal, as I mentioned at the top, of thinking about whether there are specific asks for the county board or the school board that we can bring in, very early spring. So just a couple months, whether the ask, and you all have more experience than I do, but, is it something concrete like funding, or is it just getting, a sense of the board that they would support something, and laying some initial groundwork. So with that, let me turn it over to Rick. Thank you, Rick.
You're muted, Rick. You need to unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Megan. So this sort of sprang up during a conversation we were having with the planning and development team, this notion of having a community navigator to appreciate the fact that, there are lots of things going on in the community, the populations that maybe we might not be touching, but that have needs and things that they have been receiving perhaps in the past need to be delivered in a different way. So I'm going to just lay out a couple of things and thought it would stimulate a discussion. One, so the first thing, what is the idea of a community navigator? We have many successful initiatives where Arlington has done this. You could almost say this is something that Arlington has recognized and used in many different contexts. And the idea is to finding and identifying people in the community themselves that are culturally, linguistically connected to a community and who become sort of guides for the people in the community to help, help them access services, to help get family support. I'll give you a list of initiatives that I'm sure you are familiar with. DHS has Kim Duran's community outreach program, which is something that was originally began in the 80s to work with immigrants, mostly from Cambodia, Laotia, Bolivians, I think too, who worked in these sort of like an AHC, APA type property to help people negotiate the acculturation and the immigration process. Project Family also started the same kind of thing, going into the community, working with new mothers, mostly mothers, I guess, with young children. There's the famous 0 to 5 population that we've talked about here, and helping them within their own communities. We've got the prevention unit that Lynn is working on. They're doing parent and community engagement, helping parents learn skills, working with adolescents, I'm sure other groups as well. The behavior intervention services, the courts has the IPE program, which is sort of geared toward gang prevention. We have a truancy program where we meet with kids and their families in schools, mentoring, girls outreach now has become very active. But there's a gap. Let me see, there's a whole bunch of other things. The schools have new direction, second chance is the same kind of thing. We have the Teen Network Board, which is, in the community, empowering teens, and the police is starting their new youth outreach. So in any case, we have this methodology that seems to be very effective and people who are very skilled at it. So the problem that I'm seeing, and I know I've talked to Jamie and Lynn, I've talked to several people about this, is we have an issue with families where, in the past, for better or worse, the police were involved with kids, they were involved with kids in the school, not just arresting people, but developing relationships, helping people work things out. The courts also, probation officers fulfilled that role, but we've kind of had to pull back. We're pulling back from that because of the things that have come out in recent years about the negative impacts of the police and the probation court involvement, how that negatively impacts kids. The schools also don't have the same disciplinary procedures. The definition of truancy, maybe it's always been the same, but there's a sense that I'm getting from people in my world who are saying, oh my gosh, things are, there are kids out there who really need help. And we know what we don't want to do anymore, but we don't know what we do want to do. So I'm thinking, there are resources out there with the COVID, the ARPA funds and all that. What if we thought up something that would use a modality we know, go into the communities, but work for these kids who are not the ones who rise to the level of getting sent off to detention, who need a CR2, but they will be if we don't do more about that. So the idea, I guess I would propose, one of the thoughts would be to get a group going, an interagency group to see what could be done. What can we do to, not just have a class that someone can go to, but have a place in the community where we can meet with people on Thursdays and sort of troubleshoot. So the one thing I wanted to point out, now that we have these systems that are not as able to take control of things, who else can work with these kids? And the thought, of course, is working with the parents, getting the parents to become more resilient. I don't know if you've had these kids, this experience before, but I've had many parents come to me over the years. Even now, my son is using marijuana. He's not listening. He's going out at night. He's on the phone all the time. He's doing all these things. Mr. Strobach, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? And they're afraid that, either someone's going to call CPS or their immigration situations will be threatened, and the parents themselves are feeling disempowered. So I don't have a solution or plan necessarily, but I didn't want to get, a group when we discuss this, we don't get so far that, we didn't get input from people also who have a stake in this and who might have an ability to do something. I need to excuse myself for just a second because there's an alarm going off. I need to figure out what it is, but I'll be right back.
Thanks,
sorry.
Rick. And I really appreciate Rick's going through some of the resources that are already out there. We've thought about a few of those, and there's everyone looks frozen. Okay. So tell me if it's me. But instead of talking about, I think, what is out there, and we've thought about addressing the gaps, I would love to use this time to think about what the partnership could focus on in the short term. If there's areas you really want to steer clear of, other things that we've talked about, we've thought about whether we want to focus on families with really little kids because they're not in the school system yet, or families with these kids who are in those teen years. And I was telling Rick, I remember really distinctly when Officer Pilko said, look, I have a mom, like the example Rick gave, I have a mom calling me and saying, my son's not coming home, or he's fighting with his girlfriend, or, what have you. And he would say, look, I'm not the guy you should be calling, but who else is there? And so really thinking about if the partnership can be calling for a pilot or more county resources for some kind of trusted community member navigator role, or whether we can throw some support behind, building a bit of an expansion into an existing program. And so are other folks on P&D who have kind of been thinking this through want to chime in before?
Having heard Rick, he knows that I meet with the truancy. We're trying to have, we meet with the attendance specialists and social workers and court services for cases where kids are not going to school. And when you really, start digging in, these are families in need of help, not necessarily in crisis, but almost there. And so they're always asking for a place, where can the kids go? We want structure. We want them to have mentoring. We want them to have, someone that can, where in the school is so big, sometimes kids get lost, in a big environment. And so, for example, the girls, Rick, what is the program called? I'm sorry?
The Girls Outreach Program?
Yeah, it seems like, sometimes that, people want to go there. They want to send the girls because at least they're going to be monitored. They're going to be structured. They have mentors that they can talk to. And they seem like, once they get into an environment like that, they seem to do a lot better. So to me, when I see a lot of the kids, they just need guidance. They need structure. And I don't know, Rick, if you feel, we talked about having something for the boys because they also seem to lack a place to go to. And I don't know, is it just, mentoring, but more like you go after school or you go there and then there's somebody to talk to, there's somebody to guide them. They seem to do good when they are one-on-one or in a smaller, environment when the kids are having issues. Just my 5 cents.
Yeah, I would call that, now that you're speaking of it that way, it's purposeful engagement of kids where, it's not just, you're not there passively waiting for them to come, but you have a thought in your head, I'm going to be that one person, I'm going to try to be that one person that we know if a kid has at least one positive person to help them in their life, it can get them through a difficult moment. It can make a really big difference. It's like that third grade teacher who really helped you. COVID has really thrown us off our game, I think. Other thing, we're not going back to what we had before because now so much time has passed. And, I think we're in a situation right now where I don't think it's not that we don't have resources either, because the court services unit has, we are able to pivot a little more, partly because of just mandates. We have to change the way we're doing things. But also because, the COVID and the whole situation has made it more flexible. Everyone is now able to be much more flexible than they once were. We really do need to get out into the community where those people are, because otherwise they can slip through the cracks and they're sort of forgotten. And I must say, the communities that would benefit the most are the very communities that we are trying to, support through the equity efforts, traditionally marginalized communities, people who have not received and do not have the resources to get things done, to access, to find ways to get the services they need. Jamie, I know you and I have had several conversations about it. You always have very thoughtful comments.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
I just wanted to share that communities are resilient, right? So they exist before us and after us. And so this is a awesome conversation and idea. I wonder if we were able to kind of take this to the communities that we are thinking that something like this would help, and kind of co-create it with them, as opposed to creating something for them that we don't know, one, that they want, two, that they don't have, and three, that they want to utilize. I think getting community buy-in is a really good way to enhance services and also increase the likelihood of them, being utilized.
Yes, that's absolutely critical. You're perfectly on target with that. But if they aren't, the co-creation really is this buy-in, and unless you're in that community from the outside, you can guess wrong at what they really need or want. So we're discovering that the Community Foundation is giving out this $500 a month grant for, I think, 70 or 80 families now. And what they're learning from even the first month or two is surprise, 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 that people are using the money for things that weren't necessarily thought of, but they are changing their lives for the positive. So how do we go out to the community? The other comment I would make, I guess, is Rick alluded to the 1980s where we had the bilingual outreach workers. These were, I think there were about 7 or 8 of them, and they were physically in the community. So there'd be one of the very low income, typically market rate housing that was, due to be torn down, but the landlords were making too much money to do that. And so one of the apartments would be for a bilingual outreach worker that spoke the language most common in that building. And they were revered by the people in the building in the sense of use. They could drop in 8 to 5 or 9 to whatever, and some evening programs. The old Arlington Mill was used for international nights of all sorts.
Yeah.
Bring these folks together. And it was a way of bringing the community in by having somebody knowledgeable, skilled, trained in that community, but not imposed on the community, just there, drop into it. So you're exactly right, Jamie. The next question is, how do we figure out who can do that, where the money would come from, if it's money, who gets redirected if we're going to redirect somebody, and where do you start with the communities? It takes outreach just to start with the communities. But yes.
So the outreach people, I'm sorry, one thing just to point out, which I think John has already pointed out, maybe I'm just saying the same thing, is that, these outreach workers weren't just, in the communities. These were people, from they knew the community because they themselves had experiences. It wasn't imposed in that way. It rather grew more organically out of the very community itself. And there's so many people out there that have potential and leadership. When I was doing soccer tournaments, we were into developing leaders within certain areas just to get sports activities going. And then they themselves were the ones who ran it and went to the county board to ask for, there are 2 soccer fields at Gunston today because of this group in the 80s who developed their own little mini soccer field. And they eventually got rid of one of the baseball fields and, have 2 beautiful fields right now. And it's because the people in the community at that time had really learned the skills, organized and strongly advocated for themselves. So Lynn, I'm sorry, I interrupted
No, that's
you.
no problem. No problem. John, I think it sounds like what you were describing is the community outreach program that Kim Duran is still is
Yes.
heading. The program is still there, and my team met with that team, and I was very impressed with the staff, meaning that it felt like they were really, kind of integrated into the community. They have the trust, they have the language, they have the cultural knowledge of really trusted like liaison person. But I think that what we're describing here, and I like the idea of the co-creation and the community health approach of having members in the community be integrated with these liaison folks, so that it is co-creating in identifying what the needs are, what are appropriate ways to address the needs, some ownership of that process, and I think it's so that means taking COP a step further. Perhaps creating opportunities for community members, maybe a block ambassador, a building ambassador, and compensate for them for their involvement, and them taking really leadership in this process along with the COP staff or liaison staff. And I think that if, an idea, to take this forward is if the partnership is pushing for this, then we can pilot, as you say, and identify, some communities that are ready for this kind of collaboration and integration, and we'll try it out, and then we can replicate if it seems to work. But I've heard a presentation from Philadelphia where it's a city of 1.4 million, and they were struggling the most with the opiates overdose, and they took this approach. They had staff who were in the community, and they changed the hours. So you change the hours that works with the community. Instead of 9 to 5, you go in there 12 to 7 or 12 to 8. And then they have community members become staff per se, paid for their participation and engagement, and it becomes self-sustaining where community wellness is a value in that community. And it takes time, but I think that it takes I think some strategy and some investment, meaning compensation for community members to do this work with us. So yes.
We've talked about this quite a bit, and it seems like, when we were working on the youth mental health and wellness guide, Kim DeBlau and I met with a lot of community groups, Aspire, just a whole bunch of them, to find out, what are the issues. In that case, it was about mental health. And they were so willing, so eager to tell us what was going on and what was needed. And to me, some sort of a listening initiative first, looking at, talking with, listening to really these groups. I know we recently had youth mental health and wellness meeting, and Venus, I can't remember her last name, from APA was there. And there's just, like with the APA properties, there's just a bunch of things that she needs help with. And we're not going to know these things unless we go out and listen. So that would be my first, my suggestion is we come up with a list and some plan for outreach and listening. But I also want to go back to things we've done in the past and have done well and working with county and stuff. And I'm thinking, Ann O'Brien, are you still on? I don't know if she's still there.
Here.
Ann's there. Yes, but there's some things that we need to go back and help. I mean, almost at the same time or before. And one of those might be childcare, because for lots of families, childcare is just a huge, huge issue. And that's where our kids get their start. And anyway, Ann knows more about that than I do and the status of things. And I just thought maybe we could, we could hear from Ann since she's here.
And I don't know too much about the status of things. And I think the status of things has changed, unfortunately, as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the need for, the county to reprioritize to address the many challenges posed by the pandemic. But I was involved in the child care initiative a couple of years ago, and it seemed like that was going really well. And it was making some, there were policy changes that were being made that were resulting in new providers coming on board. There might have been some, I don't know exactly at what phase, but the development of the existing child care workforce. And it just seems to have gone away. And that's really unfortunate, because now, there was some great research done as a part of that on the demographics of Arlington in terms of, just the demographics of Arlington, but also specifically related to childcare, who uses what childcare, what slots are needed, and that sort of thing. That is, I'm sure, very out of date now, because everything has changed as a result of COVID. But the challenge is nobody knows this, I don't think. I don't think there is anyone who has updated that information. Like, is there, I'm sure, the child care office is tracking like the number of licensed providers, how many providers closed, how many students, but does the community know that? And then what are the needs still related there? So it is different. It's very different from this conversation around community navigation, but it is still an important need. And it seems to have fallen off of the radar. And I think that is something that the partnership could also push to bring back.
Because that's bound to be something we would hear if we went out listening to families and nonprofits. And
well, this also fits into the idea of, empowering individuals to say what they want and look, make their voices heard, identify what is missing, how they could be helped. It is a terrible thing. You get these parents to say, well, I've tried to do this, but I didn't get it. I tried to do that and nobody helped me. And then I went to this office and they said they, were full. In a sense, we can't be doing this for them or presenting this to them as the solution to their life, but we could say, well, let's see, let's sit down, let's get someone who's been through this who can help you. Because that person is talking to us.
Sorry, Rick.
No worries.
I was just going to say, with regard to childcare, the childcare initiative focused on more licensed childcare providers, and that is obviously very valuable and a positive element in the community. But there's a huge number of people that can't afford licensed childcare, and they're now using informal childcare of one sort or another. And one of my concerns that I've been pushing lately is, how do we deal with the caregivers that aren't licensed so they do a better job of talking to their kids or playing with the kids? Or, many of them consider if the kid is fed and safe, that's all you have to do. But that doesn't deal with their social emotional needs, doesn't deal with their academic needs. So part of that is, I think we're looking at what the county can license, because that's what the counties do. But there's an unlicensed segment, and what we do about that, I don't know. but it's a worry for me. And that's a third of the kids, maybe. And they're with a sibling, a grandparent, or a couple down the street or something like that.
So just with the childcare conversation, is it advocating for more childcare providers to take subsidies? Because licensed childcare providers have CPR, they're CPR trained. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to sending kids to licensed providers.
And I think that was one of the initial goals of the child care initiative, was to increase that number that accepted subsidies. I think ultimately, at some point, there was the concern that the subsidy didn't really cover the cost of educating the child. And so, advocating at the state level to increase the amount of the subsidy was also one of the goals of the child care initiative. Now, Kim, I know you were on that as well, if you remember.
Well, Jamie, the answer is yes, that would be a wonderful thing to do. That the resources aren't there, I think. There's 15,000 kids under 5, and there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 that are working hard to find a place and can't afford it. At $10,000 a piece, which is half the normal price for a subsidy, you've got 30, 40, 50, $60 million. That's a big chunk of our budget. And so, I mean, taking the world as it is, there are unlicensed childcare providers, and we're not going to get them licensed. We could teach them CPR. We could provide classes in mental health first aid. We could do things for them. We could ask the licensed ones to, and I don't know, you're the child development experts, to do something to work harder on their social emotional learning and academic learning while they're in their care. Because as I say, some of them are wonderful, and we can see that. Some of them, the kids are safe. That's all they care about. And that's an important first step, but it doesn't develop the child the way a professional would. So,
yeah, well, then there's also, I mean, you could try and take it even a step further and go to something like what DC did, right? Which is universal pre-K. I mean, is that something that we, I don't think we really ever had that conversation at the partnership, or I don't know if Arlington, county staff have that conversation, but I mean, then there's a lot of challenges there. It's a lot of money, needs a lot of workers, skilled, trained educators, but that might be a way to get around some of these issues. It's cheaper for families.
If we've been doing that for the last 20 years, there might be more mental health counselors looking for work because they've been better educated along the way.
Very true, yeah. I think, the solution to this, there's no easy way to run kind of solution, to attacking things from different perspectives, coming up with what works too, and also in the context of Arlington. I do want to say, there's going to be the parental component. I want to go back to the parental component because that's the part that I feel strongly about. That if you have parents who are able to do things, know how to navigate systems, know how to get the resources they want, and we've all met people like that who, maybe there's nothing particularly unusual or special about them, except that they've figured out how to do things and can pull other people in and get the resources they need. One of the terrible problems is that a lot of the jobs have disappeared. You can't hire people on the one hand, but on the other hand, getting to the jobs isn't so easy. There was a time when many of the people prospered in Arlington, came here with nothing and built a business and bought a house and do all these things. It seems like that's a little bit harder now, but creating licensing and all of that, I think is a good thing. We should work on that, but we have to recognize the fact that some people aren't going to be licensed. Some people aren't licensed, they're probably doing a good job, but you don't know. And if there's a problem, it's a big problem. So in any case, so this is an interesting conversation. One of the things I've observed in the partnership as we generate ideas and have wonderful conversations, but then what?
I was about to
What shall we
take
do?
moderator's privilege to say, I guaranteed this group we'd get out at 7:30. And we have about 11 minutes left. So I think what I hear are, I think a process suggestion, which is talk to the community. And I think we know how important that is. And then some substantive ideas for what might come out of those conversations, childcare being the most recent one. So what I propose is we get folks who are interested, and I know Rick said in the chat that he's willing to work on this, I am as well, to come up with, a plan for what we want to do in the next, let's say in January, February, and March, sort of the next 1 month to 3 months. And if folks want to put together something of a plan, there might be, this isn't, Grace, block your ears. It's not a data appropriate way of getting feedback from the community, but let's think about where we already have those connections. And it sounds like Kim's program is in the community and has people, and, do we, so a smaller group could decide, that we're gonna, through those existing connections, we can meet with some interested folks in one or more of the facilities where Kim is working, or whatever ideas this group comes up with for really connecting with the community. I think that's a good avenue for this group because, Kim might feel like inclined to work with us. So I don't know if folks want to, raise their hand and volunteer right now. One idea for when to meet for a subgroup would be at least to use our P&D meeting time, since it's already on some calendars. So we can do that and put that time into getting this together. And then by the time we have our January APCYF meeting, hope to have an outline of next steps. What do folks think about that? I see some hands. Great. Okay, and then Lynn, can you just say what you put in the chat? I'm having trouble.
Sure. I think that's a good next step is to have an exploratory meeting with Kim and her team, because they are boots on the ground with the COP group, and to hear from them in terms of what they're finding, where they are helpful, and some some wishes that they have, in terms of program expansion, or I think that can be very informing of, and fitting with our vision of a community ambassador and community navigator program. So I think that that's a good first step before we even plan further. Right?
Good.
All right, I'm counting every hand I see as a volunteer, no matter what the hand is doing. So we've got John, Judy, Ann, Megan, Rick. Good.
Well, I actually wanted to add and say just
you raise your hand to say something and now you're a volunteer
in the chat as well about looping in the childcare team. And I think that, that would be a good conversation as well. And as well as touching base with Kim and her team, because I think that sometimes the partnership in the past has had a history of duplicating some of the efforts that are already ongoing in county. And if we could really make sure that we are not doing that, if there is a need that we can support, that we're supporting that, but then otherwise, really finding our own spot, I think that would probably be a good idea and help maximize the benefit and return to whatever it is we do. And you're muted, Megan.
Wow, you guys missed some really good ideas. I'm just kidding. So maybe one point person can coordinate with the childcare folks, whoever they may be, and then one person can coordinate a meeting with Kim Durand, and we're gonna find some good times for those meetings, and one or both of those could take place on the, I guess when you're talking about staff, you don't want to make it during the evening, so maybe look ahead as much as we can so we can get some daytime hours that people can make it to.
Okay, so I can I'll coordinate something with Kim and send out the message to Ann, John, Megan, and Rick. Well, that's me, of course. Ann, John, and Megan, and Judy. Judy was the other person. And then Ann, I don't have any connection with the childcare thing, but that's definitely a worthy initiative that we should be looking into. Do you still have any connections or?
Yeah, I can be the conduit to setting up that meeting, you know, with our childcare team, who among us would be interested to be in that small group of discussion. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
John, Megan, and Kim. Okay.
All right, great. And hopefully, if possible, meetings to take place before the next bigger meeting. And whenever that may be. And then I guess we're back on regular schedule. So do we meet the third week of the month, fourth week? So last but not least, wow, 5 minutes. Announcements. Lynn, do we have any staff hiring updates for all the?
Same as the last time I updated, but you know, we're getting closer. We are actually doing the second round and presumably the final interview tomorrow of our top 2 candidates. So we should come to, yes, I see Jamie clapping. We should come to some light at the end of the tunnel very soon.
Who is that replacing, Lynn? And who is that?
This is Kim Duran's position.
Oh, wow,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And then last but not least, my last plug is to use your time and parties over the holidays to recruit new members for the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I owe you all, I'm going to stop making promises and someday I'll do it, but some recruiting bullets in case you have somebody, in case you get a bite and you want to send a quick email. I'm trying to put that together.
That'd be great, Megan.
All right. Great to see everybody.
Yes. Thank you all. See you next
Happy
time.
holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays,
holidays.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Get some rest.
Holidays.
Live it up,
Bye.
forget about resting, party, woo,
Party.
safely.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.